Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that subscribe button. Really does help our channel grow, our audience grow, and I really do appreciate it more than you know. So click that subscribe button. Appreciate your support. Now, here's the video that you came here for. Let's talk Kentucky versus Missouri, okay? So listen, we've kind of scaled back the Kentucky talk a little bit here over the last couple of weeks just because there's been so many injuries. We're trying to figure out who's healthy, who's not, what does it mean, what does it not mean, all that good stuff. And I bring it up because going into this weekend, I don't know that this was a premium game that was at the top of everybody's list, even though it was a matchup of top 20 teams. It is worth noting Missouri has been struggling a little bit of late. I believe it was, 2 straight losses, 4 of 5 coming into this one. Didn't stop the odds makers, though, from saying that Missouri was a, 6.5 point favorite coming into this game. Well, I'll tell you what, Mark Pope had no time for games because Kentucky goes to Missouri. They get the win. Final score 91-83. And I'm just here to tell you, man, I'll be real, sort of, kind of, maybe a little bit lost some hope in Pope. Not really. I've never lost hope in Pope. Lost a little hope in Kentucky with all these injuries. Well, I bring it up because they get this win. How about this? I saw this stat. I didn't even tell you, producer Matt, so I apologize. I believe 8 wins over teams ranked in the top 15 that when they played, that is tied for the most in any regular season ever. How about these Kentucky Wildcats? Okay, so listen, I could go through the whole thing with Kentucky, and this guy did that, and that guy did that. But what I just find so amazing about this team is what we continue to talk about. The resilience of everybody in that building, okay? We've talked about it so many times, but Mark Pope, I don't believe, we'd have to look this up. When was the last time, even take out the Kirk Reese injury. Kirk Reese has been out since the Gonzaga game the first weekend in December. But when is the last time that Mark Pope has really had, even outside of Kirk Reese, a fully healthy lineup? Andrew Carr had back injuries. He was out. Then he comes back. Lamont Butler gets hurt. Then Lamont Butler comes back. Jackson Robinson gets hurt. Lamont Butler gets hurt a second time. Jackson Robinson and Lamont Butler come back. Jackson Robinson gets hurt. Unfortunately, he's out for the year. And Lamont Butler's still not 100%. And what has been so impressive to me about this Kentucky team is the fact that not only are other guys stepping up, let's take it a step further. Other guys that you didn't even think were going to have to play this year are stepping up. Now, I don't want to discredit the guys who have been there and been able to play basically every game, Amari Williams, Otega Oweh, etc. But it doesn't change the fact that every game dudes are stepping up. I remember the first time I saw Travis Perry starting at point guard, and I was like, I don't know if he's ready for this. And then all of a sudden, he's a very competent, as a true freshman, point guard in the SEC. He ain't there yet, but he wasn't even supposed to be playing this year, and he was starting games at the point guard position in the SEC, and this team did not miss a beat. You go on and on down the list. Trent Noah. What do they call him in Kentucky? Mountain Mamba? Well, he's playing like the Mamba the last few weeks, okay? Maybe not quite putting up 81 in an individual game. And I mean, he stepped up. He's had some big moments. What was it? The first Tennessee game that he was awesome. Second Tennessee game. I forget which one it was. He's been unbelievable. Colin Chandler. A guy, listen, I don't think people realize this, okay? And this is not sarcasm or trying to be funny or whatever. Colin Chandler was on a Mormon mission at this time last year. And for people who don't know how that works, that isn't like you do 2 hours of church stuff and you do 2 hours of church stuff and then you go to the gym for 2 hours, okay? I think I've told the story, but I remember talking to Sam Merrill, who's now in the NBA, played at Utah State. And when he did his church mission, he was literally like, I maybe got like an hour in a gym every week, but I was doing church stuff sun up to sundown. I don't know all of it. So this guy really probably, I know he's older for being a freshman, but probably should have taken a red shirt this year because I don't think his legs are anywhere close to what they're going to be. I think he's an NBA player eventually, but this was a guy that was doing basically nothing basketball related, very limited at the very least a year ago. And now all of a sudden, you're talking about a guy that's making major contributions in top 15 road wins. And so this team is playing very well. But I'll be real, they're actually playing even better than I thought, okay? So I saw this stat. Producer Matt, you could pop up Brandon Ramsey's tweet, okay? So Brandon Ramsey does great stuff for Kentucky Sports Radio. Torres used to work for KSR back in the day. Still love all the people there. Brandon Ramsey put out this tweet. It kind of blew my mind, okay? He says, quote, Kentucky is playing their best basketball of the year heading into the NCAA tournament, into tournament play, which includes the SEC tournament. Since February 8th, the Cats have been the 8th best team in the country, according to Bart Torvik. During that span, the offensive and defensive efficiency rankings are 16th and 15th, respectively. So for people who don't follow all of the advanced analytics, I'll be honest, it's even a little bit much for me, and it's my job to cover this stuff. Bart Torvik is one of the analytics sites, and the one thing that they do that's really cool, you can, and on the Ion College Basketball Podcast, they joke about this all the time, but you can sort data from a certain point, right? So it's easy to say Auburn's the best team in the country or Duke's the best team in the country, but what about over the last month? How is Auburn compared to the first month versus the last month? How is BYU is a team that is clearly a different team now than it was back in November. And so what Brandon Ramsey is saying is from February 8th on, Kentucky is playing like a top 10 team in the country. One, that's shocking because they've lost a million guys to a million different injuries. But two, when you actually peel back the layers, and two, by the way, it's shocking because, again, they were awesome at full strength. We know the resume at full strength. Beat Gonzaga. Beat Duke. Beat Gonzaga. I know they weren't technically at full strength for Texas A&M. Beat them. Beat Florida at basically full strength. Went back and forth with Alabama. So you thought that they were playing in an elite level early, but the truth was they were actually struggling defensively at the time. They were just putting up so much points that it didn't matter. And so the February 8th date is actually very interesting to me because if you know the season of Kentucky, they lose at home to Arkansas on February 1st. Then remember, it was the following game they go to Ole Miss and they give up 90-plus points. And I remember we did a late-night reaction to that one because it was just like, oh, this is kind of a fork-in-the-road moment for Kentucky. And I understand they have a million injuries. I understand there's all sorts of issues. What I will also say, though, is that it was kind of that moment where it's like, okay, is this just going to be a team that has to score 90 points because they're going to give up 88 every single game? Or are they actually at any point going to play defense? And so the fact that, as Brandon points out, that Kentucky is playing like a top 20 defensive team over the last calendar month is unbelievable. And it also speaks to the fact that they are playing like a top 10 team, which is crazy because, again, this is a team that at full strength beat Florida, beat Duke, beat Texas A&M, beat Tennessee when they were close to full strength the first time. It is just, I don't think they were close to full strength. Kentucky fans don't get mad at me, but you get the point. And so I just bring it up because what they are doing is absolutely unbelievable. And listen, I've said it consistently. Mark Pope, I think he's done his best coaching over the last month. It's easy to sit there and say, well, you beat Duke. That means something. It does. It absolutely means something. You beat Florida. Of course that means something. But the fact that he is doing it with so many different lineups, with so many guys in and out, so many guys healthy and not healthy, every game, listen, I talked to enough coaches to know it's not just games. It's practice. Who's healthy today? Who's not? I mean, you know how hard it is to every day at practice not really know who's going to be good to go and who isn't? Or there's 2 or 3 guys that every day are a little bit more questionable. I think he's doing an unbelievable job. And the crazy part is the stats basically reflect what Bart Torvik says, what Brandon Ramsey says. You go back and look, again, from February 8th on. So I was actually a little bit surprised by this because, you get caught up in so many different things over the course of a season. But since that February 8th game, I find this to be very interesting. Last 9 games, they are 6-3 overall. Now, I know that doesn't sound great, but 1, it's the SEC. 2, you talk about a team of those 3 losses, 2 of them were to Auburn at home, Alabama on the road. 2 of the top 2 or 3 teams in the country, they were pretty close to full strength. You were nothing near there. Now, they did have the loss to Texas. That one's not looking great, but listen, if I'm going to defend Arkansas after the South Carolina game, if I'm going to defend Florida after they lost to Georgia, can't blame Kentucky for having an off night against Texas in a game that they were in control of until about the 2-minute mark in that game, 3-minute mark, whatever it was. So credit to Mark Pope. They've been unbelievable. Again, 6 of their last 9 in the toughest SEC we've ever seen. At Missouri, a win. At Oklahoma, a win. A second win over Tennessee. It's just unbelievable. And I can't believe I'm saying this, but is it possible they're playing their best basketball? We're about to find out. By the way, we're going to find out as well when they go to the SEC tournament. They will play the winner of Georgia and Oklahoma, 2 teams that are actually both playing very well. And if they win, they will get the Alabama Crimson Tide, a team that has already beaten them twice. So we'll see. But I just got to give Mark Pope so much credit because I think he is doing just an unbelievable job with this group.